Since Doctor Who's very first adventure featuring the Daleks, TV directors have always searched for ways to create the illusion that there were more Dalek props available than actually existed at the BBC. The very first attempt in 1963 was the use of photo blow-ups, as seen here. In the 1966 serial Power of the Daleks, director Christopher Barry had the ingenious idea of rushing the same 4 props around the set in a loop so they could appear more than once. In Day of the Daleks from 1972, Paul Bernard performed a more sophisticated version of the same trick by resetting the same props for multiple takes, and then cutting them together. More recently, in the 2005 episode The Parting of the Ways, Russell T Davies specified in his script to use a split screen effect to multiply up the 3 props that they had, although VFX artists at the mill took it much further by masking off and overlapping the props so that no linear split was visible. But back in the 1960s, there was one unusual occasion when the Doctor Who team at the BBC turned to a rival production company to help them solve the dwindling Dalek dilemma. But a series of unfortunate events resulted in a chaotic situation and an end result which heaped misfortune on an already shaky production. If you'd like to support our research, contribute ideas, and see clips and early videos, then check out the link in the description on how to join our Patreon. Dalek casings are expensive to make. The original 4, built by Shawcraft models in the summer of 1963, were a significant investment for the fledgling TV programme and should have been worthy of keeping. But weighing against this was the cost of storing such large props. Following recording of the final episode of The Daleks, 2 props were retained, and 2 were given away to a children's charity called Dr. Barnardo's. But the great success of The Daleks ensured that they would return in a sequel the following year, and director Richard Martin was able to borrow back the 2 Daleks that had been donated to Barnardo's. In addition, he commissioned the building of 2 more props so that a total of 6 were available for shooting the Dalek invasion of Earth. A second stage was added to the fender of each Dalek to accommodate new, larger internal wheels, and this significantly increased the height of the props. The eye stalks were also made longer, and fewer discs than before were arranged along the length. Martin also used photographic blow-ups once again to further increase the numbers, although this was never a wholly effective illusion, made worse by the lack of new fenders on the old imagery. After the Dalek invasion of Earth, 2 props were returned to Barnardo's, leaving the BBC with 4 at their disposal, and these continued to retain the bigger fenders for a number of publicity appearances afterwards. Unsurprisingly, the Daleks were soon being lined up for a 3rd appearance in Doctor Who, in a serial which would be called The Chase. Once again, Richard Martin returned as director, and he hoped to repeat the same arrangement as before and borrow back the 2 Barnardo's props. Consequently, Verity Lambert's assistant, Valerie Speyer, wrote to a Miss Bunting at Stepney Green Barnardo's home, but received bad news back. In mid-March, Barnardo's informed the BBC that their 2 props were on loan and would only come available for a maximum of a week on the 27th of April. Shooting on The Chase, however, would start on the 9th of April, on location at Camber Sands, with videotaping starting on the 30th of April until the 4th of June. It's possible that the Barnardo's props might have been available for some of the requisite days, but seemingly without being able to do a block booking, no further efforts were made at working this out, and the idea of using Barnardo's props was abandoned. But what was this prior engagement which stopped the charity Daleks appearing in Doctor Who? We're hoping a viewer such as you has the answer. We believe the Barnardo's Daleks might have been attending the Midlands Boys and Girls exhibition, but despite our exhaustive searches, we cannot find any pictures which prove it. So we're desperate for any photos taken during the spring and summer of 1965 which show Daleks away from their usual television duties. We know there were Daleks of some kind at Bingley Hall in Birmingham during April, so we'd love to find out what props those were. But if those aren't Barnardo's Daleks, perhaps a photo from elsewhere in the country can help. If you think you, a parent or grandparent or distant cousin, might have any photos in the family album showing Daleks at school fetes, corporate events or exhibitions during the 1960s, please get in touch by email, Facebook, Twitter, carrier pigeon, telegram or semaphore. After the unavailability of Dr. Bernardo's Daleks was confirmed in mid-March, an alternative source of props had to be quickly sought out. And, as luck would have it, a new batch of 8 Daleks had recently been made by Shawcraft. Keen to cash in on the Dalek phenomenon, movie producers Milton Subotsky and Joe Vigoda had secured the rights to make a movie version of Doctor Who, and they quickly began development on a big screen adaptation of the first Dalek TV serial. This would eventually be released as Doctor Who and the Daleks, starring Peter Cushing as Doctor Who. The new movie Daleks were more or less built in the style of the props seen in the Dalek invasion of Earth, with large fenders and longer eye stalks with simplified discs. Initially, they even had the same small lights on the dome as in the TV series, seen here in this art department photo detailing the desired colour scheme for the red Dalek. But this photo also specifies a change to the lights, with a larger profile sketched in. An easy way was discovered to fulfill this requirement by using off-the-shelf plastic beakers with a moulded pattern. The products chosen were plastic tumblers made by Arnoldware Inc., which was established in 1958 in Vermont and part of the Rogers Plastic Company based in Massachusetts. These Arnoldware beakers were sold in sets of 6 in a variety of colours. They formed a patio and camping set, which included a jug with the same scalloped pattern. This production was coming to a close when Richard Martin was looking for Daleks, and after contacting film producer Milton Subotsky, it was confirmed that all 8 of the movie Daleks' hero props would be available once shooting wrapped. When Martin assessed the props around the 3rd week of March 1965, he found a squad which were virtually identical to those BBC Daleks which he had recently directed in the Dalek invasion of Earth. As Valerie Speyer later reported to producer Verity Lambert, Martin decided that he wouldn't use the distinctive red and black leaders, but felt that the other 6 blue casings were all potentially suitable. The colour scheme wasn't an exact match, even on a black and white TV screen, so it was decided that when the TV props were next refurbished, their hemispheres would be repainted darker, which would be a closer match to the movie props, although nothing was done about their different dome colours. But there was one difference between the movie and TV Daleks which stood out to Martin. The new beaker lights were very noticeable. But since the ping-pong balls on the BBC Daleks didn't look particularly inspiring either, his solution was to change the lights on both the BBC props and the borrowed movie Daleks so that they all matched. Designer Ray Cusick showed the new profile lights on production drawings which were drafted up a little later. But it would seem that this sketch is merely a formalization of a change which was already creeping in. Because the first of the BBC Daleks to receive new style light covers was actually photographed outside the Shawcraft workshops on or before the 25th of March, prior to when Cusick's design drawings with the new lights were done. The poor condition of this Dalek shows that it's yet to be refurbished for its next appearance in the Space Museum. And this may indicate that the new light covers seen here was a separate innovation by Shawcraft, which occurred prior to the decision to revamp all the other Daleks. This photo was taken at least a week before the prop would be needed for recording of the Space Museum at Television Centre on the 2nd of April. And at this point, the prop can be seen with its large fender still intact. Meanwhile, the verbal agreement to borrow the movie Daleks needed to be formalised. This was not done through Milton Subotsky's company Amicus, also known as Aru, who actually made the film, but instead through BLC Films. This was a distribution company created in February of 1961 as a joint venture by British Lion and Columbia, hence the initials BLC. They were responsible for selling the production output of both organisations to the UK and Ireland. As such, it was the promotions department of BLC Films with whom the BBC dealt in order to secure the movie Daleks. A fee was agreed upon that was considered expensive, and the props would become available for the chase once filming wrapped on the 23rd of April. But as the start dates loomed for videotaping the Doctor Who TV series at Riverside Studios, a scheduling conflict arose which threatened to scupper this loan agreement after all. Despite the initial belief that 8 movie Daleks would be available, of which Richard Martin thought he might use 6, It seems that one aspect of the Doctor Who and the Daleks production had been overlooked: the publicity. To promote the film, BLC arranged for the Aru movie Daleks to attend the Cannes Film Festival. The props would need to be transported to the south of France mid-May, and unfortunately this clashed with the recording dates for the Chase episodes 3 to 6. It's not known whether Martin would definitely have hired all 6 blue casings, but there is paperwork which says that the props list for episode 5 included 4 Daleks as used in Aru filming. With the props needed in France and at the BBC simultaneously, it seems that a compromise was reached in which Richard Martin would ultimately be allowed to borrow just 3 movie Daleks, and these were delivered to Shawcraft workshops sometime in early May to have their new lights fitted so that they matched the TV Daleks. The movie Daleks' plastic tumblers had been mounted on the heads with a disc-shaped fitting. This could be seen as a dark rim when the lights flashed. With the big tumblers removed, the mounting was exposed as seen here. Unfortunately, this mounting needed to be left in place, which posed a problem for adding light covers of a smaller diameter. Consequently, when Shawcraft moulded the new style bulb covers, they included a large brim which would sit over the whole mounting. When the new covers were added to the BBC Daleks in the Chase, the brim was superfluous and trimmed off. But an interesting footnote: 2 years later, when a new set of bulb covers was cast up for the Power of the Daleks, the brim was not trimmed off. So these Daleks lights possess a redundant rim of cream-coloured plastic designed to solve a problem created by the movie Daleks appearing in the Chase. Changing the lights on all the props was a relatively simple operation, but in recent weeks there had been a complication. Ray Cusick had never liked the dishes on the backs added to the BBC Daleks by Spencer Chapman for the previous TV adventure as a means of explaining how the aliens drew their power outside their city. Cusick came up with his own idea for an array of solar collectors all around the shoulders. On his design plans for this change, which were drawn up on the 5th of April, he also sketched in the new dome lights, and both modifications were duly implemented on all the BBC Daleks. At the same time, they had their hemispheres repainted to match the borrowed movie props. Unfortunately, the new solar panels were too big a modification to also apply to the movie props, both in terms of cost and being a change which couldn't be easily reversed when they had to be returned. So despite the effort made to match the lights and repaint the hemispheres, the shoulder sections became distinctly different. And then there was a second complication. There was the issue of the enlarged fenders, which had been added to the BBC Daleks for their second serial in order to accommodate larger wheels and aid mobility. Whilst it may have allowed for a smoother ride on location, it reduced their manoeuvrability in studio, resulting in the props performing 17-point turns rather than being able to pivot on the spot. But between this photo being taken and this prop's appearance for studio in the Space Museum, the decision was taken to return the BBC Daleks to their original height by removing the large extra fender and using just the original angular version with its smaller wheels. It's possible that this change was instigated by the need for William Hartnell to climb in and out of the Dalek casing for recording of these scenes in episode 3 of the Space Museum. This kind of thing could be a tricky manoeuvre even for those quite familiar with the casings. The removal of the big fender was accomplished with ease on the BBC Daleks, leaving only the original first stage in place. The problem was that the movie Daleks didn't have a small first stage fender as well as the second stage booster. This left the team with 3 options. They could leave the movie Daleks as they were, towering over the BBC Daleks by 5 inches. They could remove the large fenders and build a set of replacements to match the TV Daleks, costing time and money they probably didn't have. Or they could do the cheapest and easiest thing possible. And so it came to be that when the props were shipped over to Riverside Studios on the 14th of May for episode 3 of The Chase, they had their big fenders removed and the skirts placed directly on the studio floor. The effect was less than impressive. It's unknown whether there was originally a plan to have operators inside the borrowed Daleks, as happened in the previous serial with the Barnardo's props, but the fenders also had the wheels fitted inside, and so by trying to make these Daleks smaller, they also made them immobile. The borrowed movie Daleks were therefore consigned to statuesque sentry duty either side of the ramp in the Dalek time machine, and a third prop just off to the left. After all this effort and expense, the movie Daleks only appeared on screen for 60 seconds during episode 3. This was a single unbroken shot from camera 2, which was one of the 2 cameras out of the 5 available that was fitted with a zoom function. The props would still have been present for recording of the later shot, seen here, numbered 74, but director Richard Martin opted not to feature them. There had been so much worry and so much effort expended in obtaining these props, only for their on-screen appearance to be one of the many missed opportunities in this extremely idiosyncratic production. Would it have been so difficult to screw together a few bits of 2x4 to create fenders for each of the movie Daleks? So out of all the movie Daleks, which 3 casings did the BBC specifically receive? As well as the 8 hero props, 10 dummies were made, which were lower quality builds, just kept in the background of crowd scenes and used for some effects shots. For the 8 hero props, we have our own system for numbering each of the Daleks, and the props in question that the BBC received were numbered 5, 6 and 7. These were presumably deliberate choices, as these 3 are the only blue drones which have sucker attachments just like the TV props, whilst the rest had pincers. The prop we number 5 is the easiest to spot, because of a misaligned neck section, which makes it unusually flush to the front of the shoulders and overhang at the rear. The neck also has a white mark at the front and a crack above one hemisphere. In the chase, this Dalek is positioned to the right of the ramp in the Dalek time machine, and in the movie it's the prop second on the right when Ian is paralysed. It's also on the left when Susan is taken to the forest, and it's the Dalek with the plunger which pursues Ian in the lift. Dalek number 6 has a distinctive mark above one hemisphere. It's positioned to the left of the ramp in the chase. In the film, it's central to this shot leading up to the ambush. The third prop is movie Dalek 7, which can be distinguished by damage to the rear edge of the arm box and the rim of the bottom neck ring. At the front of the lower collar, this rivet is off-centre. In the chase, it's the Dalek on the extreme left of frame, and it's easy to miss. Identifying it is difficult with the limited photos available, but the rivets on the side of the collar have a distinctive arrangement. The prop has a similarly low-key role in the film until the very end, when it has a prominent moment chasing Ian outside the control room. Then, thanks to the magic of editing, it respawns nearest to the camera very shortly afterwards for a friendly wrestle. Finally, we get a close-up view of it deactivated after the final battle. 3 days after this studio recording, on the 17th of May, the other 5 hero props that were not used in the chase were loaded onto the back of this lorry at Shepperton Studios for their journey to the south of France in order to appear at the Cannes Film Festival. In addition to the main 5 hero props, 5 dummy Daleks were taken, which were the rougher builds previously mentioned. The Daleks received a lot of press coverage at Cannes, and photographs of the event offer some great shots of the props, which don't seem to have fared well on the 900-mile road journey. Back in London, episode 4 of The Chase was recorded on the 21st of May, but despite featuring more scenes in the Dalek time machine as per episode 3, the movie Daleks were not used at all. It's possible that on review of episode 3, the design differences of the borrowed props were too obvious, and perhaps it was thought they detracted from the visuals rather than added to them. But what makes their decision-making even harder to understand is the fact there was also an extra 5th TV Dalek casing supplied by Shawcraft and barely used in the chase. This prop was used for the location shoot at Camber Sands, and it was on the deck of the Mary Celeste, and it could have been used throughout the production. It was even needed in studio for episode 4, on the very day that they chose not to use the movie Daleks, and yet instead of boosting the numbers throughout the episode, it's only used in this one effect scene as a stunt Dalek. After recording of episode 4, promotions controller of BLC Films, Harry Pease, asked the BBC if it would be possible for him to have the movie Daleks back for a day in the near future. This was so that the Daleks could make a publicity appearance at the upcoming Variety Club Star Gala, which was being held at Festival Gardens, Battersea Park. Verity Lambert agreed he could have them back, but it wasn't an ideal situation, because the gala was taking place on Saturday the 29th of May, which was the day after recording of episode 5 of The Chase. Doctor Who's videotaping didn't finish until 10 PM at night, and the Daleks would need an early start in the morning for the opening of the event at Battersea Park. Consequently, despite all the thought that had gone into making the movie Daleks match the TV props in episode 3, regardless of the other problems, it was necessary to return the Daleks to their full movie appearance prior to studio recording of episode 5 of The Chase, in order that they were ready to go straight to Battersea Park. So this is how we see them in episode 5. This is shot number 70, which lasts less than 2 seconds and was a high shot taken on camera 1 mounted to what was called a Mole Richardson crane. There were only 2 shots of movie Daleks in episode 5, and this is the second one. Shot number 75 on camera 4, which lasts about 50 seconds of screen time. It's tempting to think we saw 2 Daleks in shot 70 and the third here in shot 75, but in fact if we look back at shot 70, careful observation shows that the pattern painted on this forest pillar, which was called a gubbage cone, is also visible in shot 75, meaning that these 2 angles are actually the same props seen from different directions. These gubbage cones were all painted using similar patterns, so for the avoidance of doubt, with some frame stacking and image enhancement, enough detail can be teased out of the shadows of shot 70 to reveal the TARDIS is visible here, which indeed matches the position in shot 75. In both these shots we can clearly see that the big fenders have been restored to the movie Daleks. This obviously resulted in the borrowed props being much taller than the BBC Daleks, although the use of this crane shot hides the height discrepancy quite well. Could this high angle be a deliberate trick to hide the difference? It would appear not, because according to the camera script, there was only supposed to be a single Dalek on the jungle path, with no thought given to the movie extras. As arranged, the day after recording of episode 5, the 3 borrowed movie Daleks made their public appearance at the gala in Battersea. Dalek 7 is identifiable here. With careful examination of the collar, the slight scorch mark can be seen. Dalek 5 is visible in this press clipping, with its misaligned neck section being discernible as the front of the neck is very flush to the shoulders. There doesn't seem to be a good picture of Dalek 6. The Daleks were then returned to Shawcraft for storage, and would have been available for use in Doctor Who once again the following week for recording of episode 6. But in this final instalment, it seems that Richard Martin could find no place for them in the action on the planet Mechanus. After production on The Chase wrapped, Verity Lambert finally replied to Harry P's letter from before the gala. She wrote on the 8th of June that they had finished with the Daleks, which were now residing at Shawcraft, who wanted rid of them ASAP. So what happened to the 3 movie Daleks after their appearance in Doctor Who? In due course they were collected from Shawcraft, and over the following months the film production team used them for the promotion of Doctor Who and the Daleks in cinemas. As part of the publicity campaign, TV Century 21 ran a competition giving away 3 real Daleks. Dalek 5, which appeared in The Chase, was repainted to take on the appearance of the Red Dalek, and lucky 9-year-old Anthony Barber was the recipient. Later, when his family moved to a flat, the Dalek was left in a relative's garage. When he later decided he wanted it back, he was told it had rotted away. Fiberglass doesn't rot, so who knows whether it was really thrown away or perhaps secretly sold. The Liverpool Echo also ran a competition to win a prop, and the prize was Dalek 7, won by Robert Rankin, who was awarded his prize at the ABC Cinema in Liverpool. In this picture, Robert is inside the Dalek, making the lights flash, with his cousin on the right. Sadly, his parents eventually got tired of storing the bulky object, and so it was given away to some friends. Robert heard later that it had been broken up to help make a go-kart from various parts. As part of the TV21 competition, Dalek 6 was repainted black, and this was won by Terence Worrell, aged 11, of Hanforth in Cheshire. He received his prize at the ABC Cinema in Wythenshawe. Prop 6 went on to enjoy a small amount of fame. When the Worrell family relocated to Preston in January of 1966, the Dalek helped promote the family business called Fame Supermarket. But nearly 4 years later, on Bonfire Night in 1969, the Dalek met a terrible fate. It was taken without permission and made the guy on top of the local bonfire. As poor young Terence Worrell watched on, the ex-film star made its final public appearance, 4 years and 5 months after its brief and troubled transition to the small screen. If only its fire extinguisher had still been working.